So any second now, we should be good. And I think we're live right now, my friend. All right, cool. So I want to keep talking about the Olympics. That's so much fun. So tell me, remind me then, my daughter hasn't swum in the synchronized swimming events for 5 or 6 years. So you said that your daughter's in the 200 IM, so all 4 events. So there's the solo. Let me see how good a dad I was. There was the solo, there was a team. Oh, there was a duet. I think you don't call it a duet, right? What do you call it?
So yeah, that's all synchronized stuff. So this is the backstroke, the breaststroke, the fly.
Oh, she's swimming.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I thought synchronized swimming.
No.
Okay, so your daughter's doing front crawl or freestyle, breaststroke, backstroke, and butterfly?
The fly, yeah.
Butterfly's horrific. I can get like 10 strokes out.
I think, it's crazy. But
wow. And so she's on the Canadian team. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you tuning in or watching the archive of this, Kevin Charles, the director of our TAC, has a more famous daughter than him, who's competing for gold, right?
Yes.
So good luck to her. Good luck to Bailey. That's fantastic, man. Well,
yes.
Congratulations to her.
Thank you.
Did her mother go out there with her?
No, nobody's allowed.
Oh,
no spectators, unfortunately. Yeah, not even local, actually. Yeah.
Even chaperones and everything like that. Hey, wow.
Nothing.
Yeah. Although I guess she's old enough, she doesn't need a chaperone, but you know what I mean, right? That would have been really cool. Bring your mother along. Yeah. So it's just coaches and team, huh?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah, we've been banking money, for the whole family to go. Like 7 of us, so now Bailey's kind of like, well, I kind of win twice. I get to go to Tokyo, and we're going to go on a family vacation. So, hey, here you go.
There you go. Exactly. Now, hi, LinkedIn user. Now, I'm sorry. What I need to do is I actually need to log in on my phone so I can see, because sometimes LinkedIn obfuscates the name. So I'm going to do that while we're live. But hello, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And, of course, I've got to go to Checkpoint site. You can just give us your name, my friend. And, welcome to the show. We're pleased to have you. Well, I remember, so Kevin and I are both Canadian citizens, so I'm tickled to bits for several reasons to have Kevin on the show. Number one, because frankly, the reality is our tax are a shining example, for us. We get this kind of feedback from our customers all the time, and it's thanks in large part to Kevin and his team. So that's really cool. I'm also Canadian, and so is Kevin. So that's even cooler. That's even cooler. And we just found out we've got a similar family kind of traits with swimming or synchronized swimming. So that's brilliant. We're just talking about the Olympics. Do you remember the Vancouver Olympics in 2010?
Yes.
So Checkpoint was securing all that. Now, how much of this am I allowed to say? Because there was a big NDA around all this. But I'll say this. When you're dealing with a group of, frankly, largely volunteers, because the IOC, there's a lot of volunteers involved in the IOC, right? It's a lot of people. There was a brownout period, I think 3 weeks prior to the Olympics, where nothing was supposed to be installed, right? Everything was supposed to be done prior to then. We had about, I think, 42 gateways, and they were measuring things like, the gates for the ski jumpers coming out, and they were firewalling all of that to make sure they couldn't be tampered with. Obviously, taking care of all the payment card industry stuff, right? The Visa cards, all the transactions in Vancouver and up on the hill. I mean, it was a lot of work. 3-week brownout period. So that was it from the beginning. We were told no installations, after this 3-week brownout period. We were installing the day before. we had people on site pulling all-nighters, trying to get the infrastructure up and running. I mean, it went off smoothly without a hitch, but what you don't see in the background was a complete nightmare. It was fantastic. Hello from Sweden. We're talking Winter Olympics Sweden, and we've got Kevin Charles, who's the director of one of our global TACs, and I'm very happy to have Kevin. So it's Beatrice here, soon to be a new account manager in Stockholm. One of the team members. Wonderful. So I'm very pleased to have you. Welcome to the show. Wing Chow. Welcome from Nicaragua. Thanks for tuning in. Adam from Texas, Houston, Texas. I was just in your wonderful city of Austin doing redneck surfing. So a mate of mine, Adam, has a speedboat. So that's all I need to say, right? Redneck surfing has a speedboat, and you fill the back of the speedboat with water. It creates a huge wake, and you surf on the back of it. It was a lot of fun. And we've got how do I pronounce this? Lysine, I hope, from France, and tuning in as well. Another LinkedIn user tuning in. And there we are. Fantastic. So, yeah, the Vancouver Olympics went off without a hitch, but behind the scenes, pretty tough. So I'm sure the same thing's happening in Tokyo. Actually, I should speak to our account managers to see if that's happening over there.
Nothing like working under pressure. It's awesome.
Nothing like working under. Well, you guys have to work under pressure all the time, right? Because when customers call, that's it. That's the pressure call. So those are the only calls you get.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that, and we'll come back to synchronized swimming because I've got so many stories and the regular swimming. I don't know what you call it, swimming, I guess, that your daughter's doing. And thanks, Adam, for saying fantastic and very nice. You know what I mean by redneck surfing, don't you, buddy? But yeah, you're always receiving calls that are under pressure. I just experienced that for the 3 weeks running up to the Vancouver Olympics. So I don't know, man. I mean, how do you handle that kind of stuff personally, right? How do you wind down at the end of the day? I know you're a bodybuilder. What else are you doing to kind of keep sane?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously our structure set up so that we can handle all that. And we have the right people, very skilled, experienced people. So that part of it's awesome. And when something critical comes in, we have the processes in place, and it's all handled quite well. Always tweaking and trying to improve, of course, but for the most part, they're not always critical cases. It's actually less than you would think. It's a very small percentage of issues that would come in that are critical. There's a lot of things, just configuration, or people just need some assistance because they may not have the knowledge, and we're finding more and more of that just because of the breadth of our technologies, right? So personally, how do I handle it? I do a ton of things. I like to exercise and bike and run, and I'm a huge outdoors person. And my peers always wonder why when I take vacation, I'm like, you actually won't be able to reach me because I'm in the middle of the woods and where no cell service will work. And so that's kind of my downtime, the fire, the get in a canoe and travel. So that's kind of how I personally handle it. But yeah, it's quite nice.
Well, yeah. So for the audience listening in, Kevin's a Canadian guy. So for Canadians getting out into the woods. So where'd you go when you get out into the woods? And hello, by the way, from Nigeria. So Emmanuel, thanks for tuning in. Hello, Mira from India. Wonderful for you to tune in. What time is it over there? Midnight. So it's pretty late. Thank you for tuning in. That's very good of you. And Adam, you're right. They call it wakeboarding in California. I'll stick to redneck surfing, man. It just sounds so much cooler. Where do you go disappear when you're off the grid for a week or two?
It's a few hours, I would say, west of Ottawa, and there's so many lakes around here. It's insane. As you would know, anywhere between Toronto and Ottawa, it's just a plethora of lakes. So usually go out there, and there's a few favorite spots that I keep secret. You don't want people out there. So there's been times I've been out on the lake and I'm the only one there for days. It's quite nice.
And do you go alone when you do these trips, or are you with a group of friends?
No, I usually my wife will come with me, or sometimes we'll bring a couple other people with us because it is quite beautiful and you want to share it. But it's the family. We have a family trip we do every year as well. So.
Nice. We have another team member, Coyote. I hope I'm pronouncing that okay, from Nigeria. Thank you for tuning in. Do you know the first time I saw the Milky Way was in northern Ottawa? So I went to actually this dear friend of mine. He was my very first manager at my very first technical job after I was an English teacher. This is the guy that gave me my break, right? So I love this human being. We've become dear friends ever since. Can't wait to see each other. Invited me to his cabin up in northern-ish Ontario, and I remember at the end of his dock, looking up at the sky. We're sitting there sharing a cigar and whatever. And looking up at the sky, thinking, oh, it's kind of cloudy. And he said, that's not a cloud. That's the Milky Way. That's pretty wild, right? And
it's impressive.
Yeah, I had one of those moments that was a paradigm shift. It was I'm on, Carl Sagan talked about the little blue dot, right? In after Cosmos and all those series he did, talked about the little blue dot. I just suddenly realized, wow, I'm just on this speck of rock, just hurtling through space, right? And I'm part of this huge thing. And it really makes you, and especially your problem, seem absolutely insignificant.
Absolutely, yeah. I know we were out there one night, and my wife, and she had never been like night canoeing. So it's, I mean, as you state, you can see the sky so clearly. And when you're in the middle of a lake in the middle of the night and it's just like glass, you could look down or look up and you see the same thing.
Oh, wow.
And it's so still and so quiet and so dark. It's just beautiful.
Oh, wow. That is a serene. Yeah, those are the moments of inspiration, my friend. I think this is, the human condition is a funny thing, right? We technologists, especially for the audience listening, for those that will listen to the archive, we are typically, let's say at the very least, gadget geeks, and at the most, high def engineers that think in ones and zeros. And, that kind of return to nature, and I get a little hippie-ish, but yeah, I've got candles burning, so look at me. So yeah, hippie is, I'm okay with that, I guess. Hello from India. Thanks for tuning in. I'm sorry it says LinkedIn user, but sometimes LinkedIn obfuscates your name. Give us your name and definitely comment. We've got the director of one of our Tax of Excellence with us, Kevin Charles. So it's an Ask Me Anything session and a fireside chat between two awesome cyber dudes. If I do say so myself. But yeah, returning to nature is, I don't know, man. It's I try to hike, right? I try to hike as much as I can. When I lived in Calgary, I lived on the farthest west end of the city because my mantra was this: no traffic lights to the mountains. That's all I insisted on to my wife. Right? You can choose the house, you can choose the neighbor, you choose everything. Just don't give me one more traffic light coming out of work, because I'll be really grumpy, right? So I just want to get in my car and drive to the mountains without having to stop. And you know what it's like? So in Alberta, we were 3,600 feet above sea level. And so we used to do this thing called Tuesday night men's hike night. So every Tuesday night, we'd wrap up around 4 o'clock. We'd belt it out to my house because Eddie lived on the furthest west end of the city. Then we'd carpool, right? We'd have all our gear in the back of the car. And you could literally summit a mountain and be back at the car park before dark, because it didn't get dark till 11:45 at night. Mm-hmm. And we had some epic hikes, had some scary moments, lots of bears, right? We had some epic hikes out there. So that was, that was therapy for the soul. That was totally therapy. What about the rest of your team members? Now, how many people work at your TAC?
We're about over 200 now, 220-ish.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. And do you cover a certain time zone, or is it any time zones across the world?
Yeah, so there's like 3 main TACs, right? There's the one in Israel, one in Dallas, and the one in Ottawa. The one in Ottawa is the largest. And then we have some smaller regional ones. India's growing, and Japan and China. But the one in Ottawa, we've got 24/7 operations. So we are global coverage. And then we have some follow the suns and the others. So we sort of have that redundancy where we've always got multiple TACs running to support each other and back each other up should, holidays or some natural disaster happen, or a pandemic, should it ever happen.
Right. I wonder. Let's not open that can of worms. Like a really bad, cheap movie that's just never ending.
That's right. That's right.
It's like any second now it's going to end, and it doesn't. It goes on for another hour. Right?
It's a revolving door. It's like you can go inside, no, go back in. You go inside, no, go back in.
Right. That's right. You can't quite get out of this one. Well, it's nice to hear that we've got stuff going on in Japan, China, and India. Too bad you couldn't pop out to Japan under the guise of taking care of the TAC while the Olympics were on for your daughter. But yeah, so that's cool. So are you guys mentoring those other TACs out there? Is there any kind of cross-pollination of knowledge?
Certainly the larger ones have a ton of knowledge, and they've been around even before the Ottawa TAC came along. So. Okay. Right. I mean, the Ottawa TAC was part of the acquisition from Nokia into Checkpoint. So,
right.
I mean, lots of knowledge there as well. But the Dallas and the Israel one were pre-existing TACs. And then India, we've spun up. We've got a small one in Australia as well. So really trying to also cover regionally and those cultures and the language. So we're continuing to grow and spread. But the core of the TACs are still the same. So, yeah.
Gotcha. And I'm going to go with Mr. Dare, because I'm not trying that first name, my friend. Hello, another from Nigeria. Thanks for tuning in so much. That's wonderful. In fact, our friends in Nigeria, one of our team members, his first name's Justice, his last name's escaping me, is getting published in a wonderful blog called cybertalk.org. So look out for that blog. It's a cybersecurity blog, obviously. And anyway, that's one of Kevin and I's colleagues who's writing very well for us. Yeah, so If there's a secret to running a great tag, what would it be?
Wow.
Yeah, it's a generalist question, but it requires a tough answer, right?
Right. I mean, it's the easy ones are to say great customer support and all of this. That's a given, right? I really think one of the core pieces that we have in our organization is that we really have a strong relation with everybody in the organization, and many of them have been around for 20 years in the support organization and become experts in certain fields. And I think that's really key. I think that being able to keep your employees long term, gain that knowledge is the key thing. I mean, we're always training new technologies, but to be able to reach back to those people that have that, very deep knowledge is a key component. So.
Says something for Checkpoint too, and I try on this show not to be kind of a rah-rah Checkpoint because I'm that guy anyway, right? But to have that kind of longevity, last week I had Doug Shoemaker, right, who's your old Nokia buddy there, on the show. I mean, including Nokia, but 20 years, right? And we've got a lot of 20-year people at Checkpoint, which is marvelous. So clearly the company's doing something right. To treat its people well. So I think that's great. I definitely get the impression that there's, it's kind of a secondary family, right? I do get that.
For sure. Yeah. I think you have to have that, to deal with everything that's coming in at you. I always say to new employees that come in, it's a lot to learn. And just when you think you're that you're really nailing it, you're really just scratching the surface. And that if you don't lean on your peers, you won't make it because you really cannot know everything. And you really need to be able to have that relationship with your peers to feel comfortable to go out and ask them for help or know who to go to for certain technologies. So.
Yeah, and you know what? I want to talk about that because, and by the way, hello from India over here, Prathish, we'll go with that, Prathish, my friend. Thank you so much for tuning in. We got a lot of people working hard in India, up late at night. As technologists, it's funny because we are sort of outside of our industry. We are labeled as kind of, you're technology, you're engineers, you're not that good at people skills, right? And yet, obviously, that's not the case. Yeah. And what you're saying is the secret sauce, or one of many, let's say, secret sauces for the recipe of having a great, we got Ottawa, Lambert from Ottawa. Is that a team member of ours or is that a customer? I don't know, but Lambert from Ottawa, right next door to our tap.
Top-notch manager from Ottawa.
Okay, fantastic. Hello, Lambert. Pleased to meet you, my friend. But yeah, you talk about relationships. What I think is interesting out of that is, in order to have great relationships, you kind of have to be a great person, right? It's interesting, isn't it? You think about, you getting away to nature and me saying my kind of hippie comments, right? And love being in nature and kind of detaching from technology. I'm going to Costa Rica on vacation later, do surfing, right? Later this summer. That's my kind of once a year thing. Haven't been for a few years, obviously. So we're just going to say, we got to go. Same thing. And I don't go to nice resorts. I go to a real rust bucket of a town, right? In this kind of cheap and nasty motel room. Love it. It's fantastic. Right, just hanging on the beach with a bunch of hippies and and surfing, and I think that's the secret to these kinds of relationships, is finding something that you connect with and relate to somebody else on. When you and I first spoke here just recently, I reminded you we were at some restaurant somewhere, weren't we? And we're talking about bodybuilding, right? Yeah. So we remember those things, and that's so clearly the camaraderie is going well for people at Lambert. And also we've got George from Ottawa. Is he on the team as well? George Hamill. There we go. Okay, so we've got a couple of Checkpoint team members tuning in. Thank you so much, George, for tuning in. So there you go, team, right? In fact, that's interesting, Kevin, because so Peter, our chief marketing officer, said, Eddie, you should definitely get Kevin Charles on the show because our attacks are well regarded around the world. I think it would be an interesting one. I'm like, okay, yeah, it'd be a great idea. And why? Well, that's a reflection because on my previous shows, I haven't had other people's team members, right? So that's kind of cool, Kevin. I hate to make you blush, man.
Well, they're here to mock me, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, jump in, George and Lambert. Get mocking. It's all good. We've got from Mexico tuning in right now, Israel. Thank you on our YouTube channel, and also tuning in from Iran. Welcome, Sina, and I'll just go with the first name from Iran. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's really sweet of you. I don't know what time it is over there, but I'm pretty sure you're working late too. So fantastic, Sienna. Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, I've got Kevin Charles on the show with us, who is the director of our Ottawa TAC, Checkpoint's largest TAC that takes care of a lot of our customers and keeps them happy, keeps the sales and marketing teams being able to say that we've championed the Fortune 1000 around the world, right? We couldn't say it if you weren't taking care of them, man. So that's great. All right. Well, so getting back to some of the things. So you're out kayaking in the middle of nowhere. Do you have team things, prior to the lockdown, of course, but do you have team things that you're also doing to cultivate those relationships, Kevin?
Was always an ongoing thing, which I think during the lockdown has made it a little more challenging when we've got new members who don't really connect with us because we can't offer these things. But we're always constantly doing team events, and the really nice thing, not just work team events, right? There are a lot of friendships made out of work who go golfing all the time, or Dennis, one of our general managers, holds an event at his cottage, and tons of people go to that. And these are people who can do anything they want on the weekend, and they're going to hang out with people from work. So I really think that says a lot about our organization. And and we'll continue to do it once the lockdown is over, and it looks like we're slowly getting out of it, which is fantastic.
Right. Svitlana, I hope I'm pronouncing that okay, from the Ukraine is joining in, along with Dennis saying hi. This is an Ask Me Anything and a fireside chat with Kevin Charles, the director of our TAC. So if you have questions for the TAC, please jump in and let's have a little bit of fun here as well. Yeah, the world is going to have to shift, hey, because there'll obviously be a hybrid. We're talking about this too. Obviously, being in marketing, it's like, when do we start going in person to events? Well, right. The answer is as soon as our competition does, of course. But when is the right time for the industry to start doing that? And it still will be very much a hybrid. And so, what can we do digitally? And look, I'm an outdoorsy guy. You're an outdoorsy guy. A lot of people tend to scoff at the, Facebook doesn't get us interacting in person. It's like, yeah, okay, I get that. We shouldn't completely replace one with the other. But I actually think the last 18 months was an amazing success story, right? You think about our kids. Yes, the level of education would have gone down, of course, because we had to scramble. We were caught by surprise. But most kids have Chromebooks, some kind of notebook, some kind of cheap computer. They logged into their classrooms. Yeah, it was a bumpy start. I get all of that. It was rough, and it really was rough for a lot of people that were sick. But the success story here is phenomenal, right? The stock market didn't crash. Right?
Yeah. People
did lose their jobs. A lot of those jobs came back. Right? Again, I with a hand on my heart, I feel sorry for those people, but they are in a tiny minority. I feel so sorry for them, but they're in a tiny minority. The rest of the world just cooked right ahead. We've never done that in the history of humanity, and it is thank you TCP over IP. Right? It's thank you thing called the internet. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we didn't even. It really felt like we didn't skip a beat. Like we were, I guess, pleasantly surprised how prepared we were. And there were a lot of factors to that. I mean, one of them was that we were doing renovations, and we kind of had people working from home already a little bit. And I mean, obviously, with our system set up and redundancy and everything, we were prepared for this. But never did we think that it was going to last this long. And then we found that we're just as productive, if not more productive, working from home. So, as you said, moving back, into somewhat face-to-face meetings and in the office, I'm sure that we'll continue to have that hybrid model where we're remaining working from home and giving that flexibility to the employees.
So, while the office was empty, you did some renovations. Is that what you were saying?
No, we had done it. We had finished it.
Oh,
well, I think we were back 2 weeks.
Oh no! It was the same with the New York office, right? We'd just moved locations. We had some architects working on the whole new office. We were still a few months away, but yeah, then they finished it and it's been sitting there empty. Now we've just reopened it. Yeah. So just bad timing, but there you go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see how it all kind of rolls back. I think people are going to need a nudge. I am a proponent of hybrid, not just of working from home, right? I do actually like going in. Now it takes me about an hour, and so I'm an American boy now, right? Remember that. It takes me about an hour and 45 minutes door to door.
A bit more traffic for you.
Yeah, one way, right? And I take the train, because I refuse to. I'm not sitting in traffic. I want to be productive. So at least I'm productive. I'm on the train. There's a mildly crap Wi-Fi, so I get something done. At the end of the day, I read a novel, right? Because I just want to unwind. In fact, there's a whole group of us guys. I don't even know their names, but we all see each other because we recognize we're on the 709 train. Get a little nod, and we've all got brown paper bags. Right? There's a little liquor store at the train station, so we all grab this extra large cheap beer, and then by the time I get home, I'm totally relaxed. That's replacing nature. There you go. Yeah. So, but it's a long day, and that hour and 45 minutes, both ways, is a lot of time that working from home I get to use working, much more efficiently. So I like that. But still, going into the office is, it needs to stay. So I think we're going to have to really nudge people to get back in. And then, of course, I don't know if you've had this, but it's happened, and it's happened quite a bit. People are just taking advantage of the fact that, why am I living in New York or San Francisco? I'm out of here, right? I'm moving to Boise, Idaho. And it's like, yeah, but now we need you back in the office. So what are you going to do?
We've had a few for sure.
Yeah, and there's kind of a cost of living adjustment when you're living in San Francisco and New York, which, you don't have to have when you're living in Boise. Yeah. So we got to work out all those kinks. I know some people at some of the big tech companies in the Valley, not ours. Some of the big tech companies moved to Hawaii. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to fly.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So what we're going to say is, well, look, it's a new world. We want to be accommodating. How about 3 days a week, right? Yeah. So now get on a flight. This is on you. This is your cost, but flights are cheap. So, for $100, rent an Airbnb. If this is your thing, you want to live in Idaho, but work in the California office, we want you in 3 days a week. And that's a fair ask. And that's still a heck of a lot cheaper than buying a $2 million house in San Francisco, right? And having that monstrous mortgage. So the world is changing. I think it's great. These are, this generation is experiencing growing pains more rapidly, I think, than others. You know what I mean?
And clearly a lot of uncertainty. So I think they will be well versed at handling change. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's Darwin's quote, right? The survival of the species is not dependent on the strongest. People think it's the fittest that survive. It's actually those most adaptable to change.
Yeah.
It's an interesting quote and an interesting theory for the way we should think, right, in life and adapt to change. All right, so all right, let's talk about this. Last week, when I mentioned I had Doug on the call, we had people chime in like, I love those IP appliances. I've got one that's been running for 9 years. And we're like, really? I've heard those stories before. So back in the day, of course, it was the Nokia tag, right? Yes. So I don't know the history there. Nokia, Finnish company, right? Finnish or Swedish? Finnish company. Built cell phones first, and then they got into the server game. Is that how it went?
So just to go back to your statement, we used to get emails from customers all the time, and they would just send us a screenshot of the uptime on these IP appliances. They didn't have an issue. They were just like, look at this. And some of them were 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. It was nuts, but I think they originally started, I don't know if it was tires or rubber boots, but that is sort of where they came from, and then got into technology, and then absolutely, especially from my group that was in Ottawa, started with the mobility and the security. There's sort of two split organizations that we worked with. In fact, I worked in the security division for a while, and then I moved over to the enterprise mobility division. And that was a really exciting time. And this was pre-Apple phones, but just on the cusp. Right. I can remember running phones over to BlackBerry, and because we had some work that we were working on together, and they'd come over to our office, and it's just some crazy fun times. But and then of course, the iPhone came out, and it just changed everything. I did end up going back towards the security area, I'd say around 2007, which was a couple years before the acquisition of the Nokia security division. So that's how I ended up in Checkpoint. And, it's a very lucky story. I loved the security area, everything about it. It was still exciting, obviously, the mobility side. Nobody actually really knew what was going to happen on either side. But lucky for me, things just went well with security, and the mobility side just did not. So
right.
They got out of it actually pretty quick. So
I just finished reading another Steve Jobs biography, and it really helped with understanding how that guy managed to disrupt and frankly destroy the cell phone market. But enhance it. And look at this. So that's interesting. When you said rubber and tire or something, so George Hanna's chiming in saying Nokia was paper and pulp. That blows my mind. Okay, so that makes that company even more impressive to me, as a matter of fact, because if you're starting out in paper and pulp, you pivot to cell phones, you pivot to servers, and it's like, yeah, okay, those things didn't work out as well, but it's like, they worked out quite well for a time there, right?
Yes.
And they're not gone, right? We picked up that server division, and I think Checkpoint, and I think everybody would agree on this. I'm not just saying rah Checkpoint. We pride ourselves on our engineering standards. So yeah, of course we would acquire a company that has, people sending in screenshots of servers being up 6, 7, 8 years, and even last year, somebody saying 9 years. And Bing, let me try and pronounce that last name there, Magpeo, thank you so much for this feedback. Glad I joined, meaningful and very relevant indeed. This is an Ask Me Anything session with Kevin Charles, the director of our TAC, and I'm happy to just carry on talking though, but if you have any questions or comments or just chiming in like this with paper and pulp, please do so. Yeah, that's super impressive to me, because when I read, so it's like, okay, another Steve Jobs biography, like a little bit of an eye-rolling moment for me right at first, because I must admit, back in the day when everybody was kind of worshiping Steve Jobs, I was looking at Bill Gates saying, yeah, I know he's a bit more of a square bear and Jobs is much cooler, but I was just really impressed with what he was doing with his philanthropy. So I was kind of on that side of the house. Mm-hmm. Plus, I'd always worked for companies that were PC companies, so, PC guy, right? Not with the candles, you would think I'm an Apple guy and the hair. But yeah, so PC dude in that ad. I'm really the Apple dude dressed as a PC guy. So, but when I read it, what really impressed me was the fact that he was able to go to the music industry. This was back in the days of Napster. So remember Napster? Mm-hmm. I was doing it too. I was pirating tons of music off of Napster and videos. And so we're getting all this for free. And Steve Jobs said to the big five, Sony, Warner Brothers, whatever they are. These are some of the biggest companies in the world, the most powerful companies in the world that are trying to bring lawsuits down on people downloading all this music for free in all these servers. And Steve Jobs said, if you give people the choice between pirating and buying, they'll buy. And of course, the big five are like, give me a break. This is ridiculous. We're going to hammer these guys. He's like, no, trust me. And he convinced them to trust him, and he was right. Because it was a pain in the butt.
It was.
A pain in the ass, wasn't it? Do you remember that?
Oh, yes.
And then you got the fake ones and all this kind of stuff. And it was just like, God, just let me do Click for 99 cents and I'll get it done. He was right. It was absolutely amazing. So, chiming in from, I think, India here, most likely. What does Nokia do in IT security? Well, let's go back to a little bit of history there, my friend. I think Bhupinder, good question. And so what Nokia was actually doing, well, did you say they were doing security? Because they had servers which our software ran on. So that was the relationship with security. Were they doing something else, Kevin?
Yes. So, we had the hardened appliances and running the operating system, IPSO, and then running Checkpoint's software on that. There were some other areas as well. That they were these IP VPNs, which were these intelligent VPN small appliances that you just plug them in and they connected and did configure themselves, and really they worked well. But they were always branching out and trying different things. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, the bread and butter was working with Checkpoint and running their software, which is why the integration of our people that ran the support organization, it was so easy to come into Checkpoint and just continue working.
Hand in glove fit. Bhupinder, I'm so sorry, man. I see your name and I'm like, oh, you must be dialing in from India. We've got tons of people that came in from India before. You're in Canada, my old home country. Not that you'd probably think with my accent, though, I'm a Brit. I am, but I'm really a Canadian. That's my chosen citizenship, my friend. Anyway, that's great. Thanks for letting me know and dialing in, Bhupinder. So yeah, that's the trick. That was back in the days of Checkpoint software technologies, when we were only software, right? Sun Solero. This is way before my time. I was still teaching English back when you were running all that stuff. And I got to Checkpoint in 2008. And just as we had made that acquisition, I think, around that time, I think it was. Yeah. And then, of course, started building our own appliances. I think, and I hope, modeled after the excellence of those IP appliances that last for years and years and years. And so, Bhupinder, I like a guy with a decent sense of humor, my friend. There's way too many microaggressions these days. So thanks for lolling that one for me, my friend. So really Nokia had that relationship. Well, look, they were servers. They could have had a relationship with any software vendor. Would you agree that their strongest and best relationship was with Checkpoint? And if so, why?
Yeah, hands down, no question. I mean, and they did have some other relations with some other vendors and trying different things. I think that as a company, you need to do that. But for sure, the Checkpoint relationship, it was, as everybody knows, right? You had that dashboard and everything was managed from it, and that was the selling feature and the security of it. And it was software that had been baked in and used, and people loved it. So I think all the other vendors we were using were trying to catch up to that. And really 99% of what we did was Checkpoint. So.
So I'll call myself a gadget geek. So I'm not a really technical guy, right? I came across to Canada in '93 as an English teacher. And then I got into the tech game because I'm a gadget geek and I enjoyed it, right? So what mystifies me, though, about both Checkpoint and, let's say, Apple computers is what you just said. Everybody else was trying to get the same thing done. And you're dead right. I remember this actually in 2008. I was at my new hire orientation. So I'd been shipped out to Tel Aviv. Our head office still in Israel, right? Tel Aviv, and I'm really proud of it. I think it's really cool. And sat there for a week and got the fire hose stuck in my mouth. And it's like, drink this Kool-Aid, Doyle. And you come out the other side saying, wearing pink and saying Checkpoint's amazing. And Gil Schwed, of course, one of the founding fathers of cybersecurity and still our CEO today, who wrote Stateful Packet Inspection, who invented the firewall. He came in and they didn't ask me anything back before it was called Ask Me Anything. And, I said, well, what really differentiates us? And there were a few things. And one of the things was the point and click GUI. And he told the whole story of when him and Marius and Shlomo sitting at his mother's kitchen table, building the firewall for the first time and doing all this coding. And he knew early on that if security is too complicated, people won't follow it. Now, that's been part of our DNA forever, right? And I've repeated that for the last 12, 15 years. And yet I look at our competition in much the same way that I look at Apple computers and what they did with an iPhone. Now, Android have done a really good job. They've done a really good job, right? And there's other competition out there for Checkpoint that have done a good job, absolutely. Yeah. But what I can't understand, because I think it's all ones and zeros, is why isn't everybody doing it? Because really, the GUI at Checkpoint, that is still the cat's meow. It really is. People love it. And so why isn't everybody else doing it? I don't know. It's a weird thing, right? It's not like we didn't just invent this yesterday. It was a 24-year-old company, right? It's been around for 24 years. We got some patents, obviously, but you can still do something amazing. I find that odd, right? It's a strange thing in technology. I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah. I hope it continues.
That's right. Yeah. Hopefully somebody in the audience knows. But it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Anyway, the point and click GUI, if you make it easy, which is exactly what Steve Jobs said to the music industry, just let people download it, clicking a button. They don't want CDs anymore. We don't want DVDs. That's a thing of the past, right? And, he was a visionary. So look, hats off to Jobs. And yeah, even one of our darling Canadian companies, BlackBerry, really, I think, was a consequence of Steve Jobs's brilliance as well. Because I love my BlackBerry, man. That was a cool phone. I love the tactile feedback on the keyboard, and
people did not want to let go of those. I think once you had one, it was like you were holding on to those till the very bitter end.
Yes. And then when all my mates were on iPhone, it was just like, okay, that looks pretty cool. I better switch over now. Yeah. But that BlackBerry had a good run. Are they still around, BlackBerry?
I am not sure.
I know they had some tech on the International Space Station. I know they had some tech there. So they might still be supporting some real niche plays, but so that they'll be supporting those guys up there if they've got their tech. But yeah. Otherwise, the actual phone, I think probably their algorithms are running somewhere, and that's all they've leased.
I'm sure
Yeah. It makes me think that there's kind of like an elephant graveyard for technology, right? You want to sort of walk down the halls of extinction of those wonderful IP appliances, those great Blackberries, some goofy ones, some people. When I was a kid, my first computer, Commodore 64. Did you have that in North America?
Yes. Or the VIC-20.
Okay, I don't know that one. Yeah,
that was pre-Commodore 64, so it's
Oh, was it? Yeah. So that's in the halls of extinction. That'll make a good keynote, since that's what I do for a living, right? I might bring that. I think we might have just given birth to a whole new keynote for me here. I don't
know if you remember back on the Commodore 64, they used to have these like gamer magazines or tech magazines would come out, and there were like 3 pages of code, and you'd be typing them in, and you could not make one mistake, and you'd be typing for hours, and then finally at the very end you would execute it, and you would just hope you didn't like miss a comma, and really all it would do is create something that would spin around and go off on the screen, but it was so satisfying when you got it done.
Mine. So this is the difference between somebody who studied English and somebody who's a pure technical guy like you. Mine was this: 10, print, Eddie is cool. 20, go to 10. That was it. That was the extent of my basic programming language.
And did it work?
Didn't get quite as deep as what you did, but I did have those magazines, and I remember the joystick, and I remember this one car driving game, and you had to wiggle the stick from side to side as fast as you could to make the car go forward. And I tell my kids that now, who have, of course, what do they have, PlayStations and everything else.
Yes.
And yeah, what a joke. It's come a long way.
It's come a long way. It's come a long way for sure.
As has cybersecurity. I was bumping into a neighbor just the other day, an older guy, maybe in his 80s, like so super older guy, who's just like, you must get this all the time. I mean, and when they ask me, I really feel for them, because you're asking the wrong guy. When they find out I'm in cybersecurity, they go, oh, I've got this thing on my computer. And I'm like, oh no, right? Now I've got to go fix Windows NT or something. Right? So I don't mind doing it for my mother, right, in Europe. But I have to draw the line, because I'm actually not that good at it. Anyway, so I was chatting with this guy who obviously doesn't know too much about cybersecurity. Why would he? It's a very new thing. But I was saying how the industry is coming along. I mean, we're having conversations with the manufacturers of chipsets to go in driverless cars. Mm-hmm. So who would have thought that these are the conversations now? Not just protecting the perimeter, not just protecting the cloud, not just protecting IoT, but now it's like driverless cars. It's a great game to be in, right?
Yeah.
We're on the front edge of a tsunami. We've got a surfboard. Hold on like hell.
Yeah, right? I mean, it's in everything, right? Everything we do is connected now, so it all has to be protected, and it's great to see that we're in all areas of it. So
it's interesting that so I like to say this, that we came into security as opposed to just technology, because you're a technologist, so you didn't have to be cybersecurity. But right. If you think about your career, I would suspect, and this is what I'm going to ask you to say, how if you can connect the dots looking back, right? Steve Jobs said that in that commensurate address over at Stanford. You can connect the dots looking back. But I would suspect that the way it works is we don't choose our career. Our career chooses us. And what I mean by that is, when I look back on my own life, when I was a kid, I was a police cadet. I love the uniform. I love law and order, straight lines and borders, this kind of stuff. I don't like Picasso. I find it too crazy, right? I like Monet. I like straight lines and order. You can see it in my kind of life, right? And so, then I was in the reserve military to get through university, so that kind of ilk, right? And so I feel drawn to cybersecurity if I really pay attention to my consciousness. What about yourself? I mean, do you think it was just pure luck getting into cyber, or were you
so first off, I shouldn't have been in cybersecurity. I should have been a rock star. That was my goal, right?
Okay, of course.
Growing up like that.
Really? Did you play an instrument? Did you play an instrument?
Yes. I sing and play guitar. Yeah.
Nice, man. Are you on YouTube?
Possibly.
Totally looking that up. I won't screen share right now.
Well, no. So, and it's funny you say that, because when growing up, I mean, I was always into technology and tech, and the old little Apple computer. It was all in one, and I really enjoyed that. But then I was using that more for the art side. And so I actually went to school originally for music, and I did that for many, many years, playing, pubs and bars, and that's how I was living. And then I got into a woodworking as another career, because it's creative, which then is okay, I eventually want to own something. So this isn't panning out well, being a musician. So then I went back to school for computer science, and some people are like, well, that's quite a jump from musician to computer science, but it was still creative. I went for programming and creating, applications and the database side and all of it. And so it was really interesting to do that. And I think that sort of led me into into Nokia, when it was the networking side. So as much as I love the creativity side, I also did like the structure and the networking side, and the ones and zeros and all that. So it was quite a path for me to get there. But the creativity side and all that in technology, I very much enjoyed, and the security side, I just sort of happened upon that, and I like the fact that in never dealing more with the people too. Whereas in programming, you're just there, you're by yourself, you're creating and you're submitting. So, and which full circle brings us back to, the group and how it's not just about tech, it's about the soft skills and the people skills and the relationships and all of that. So you kind of have to bundle that in with the network technology side as well.
Yeah. And to remember this, there's a human that has on the other side of the phone that is trying to pay their mortgage and get through life, right? And they just want to do their job and kind of, get home and be successful at it. Gil says something similar, actually. I've sat in enough, kind of fireside chats where he's being interviewed, and he said, and there's a question, well, what would you be doing if you weren't, CEO of Checkpoint, the creator of all this awesome stuff? He said, probably an architect. This is very similar, right? It's a similar skill set. Yeah, exactly. Now, Bhupinder's chiming in. Let's have a look here. Thank you very much, Bhupinder. Next generation firewalls, IoT, IPS, IDS, and then we have them on cloud. What do you think is coming up next in cybersecurity? Thanks, Bhupinder. What new security appliance do you think industry would need in the future? What do you think, Kevin? Just general thoughts on that. I'll leave it up.
Well, so the two different things, right? So, I mean, you're talking the appliances and the cloud. I mean, at the end of the day, the cloud is appliances or technology in the back end. I know that right now, the cloud is the focus, in almost everything we're doing. But in stating that, the back end is still hardware. It's still bits and bytes. It's still software running on hardware. So while we're working on that and saying that we're in the cloud and moving forward with that, we're still going to be innovating to I guess control that in the back end. As I said, cloud is everything right now. We've got so much training on it, and not just our technologies. You can't be working in the cloud and just understand our technologies. You need to understand, the whole infrastructure behind that before you can just support those technologies. So that's a big question. There's a lot to it. And yeah.
Yeah, Bhupinder, here's where I think we're going with this, and this is a wild one, but I think we must go here. I think we are in fact compelled to go here, and I think I'm talking about the cybersecurity industry, must step here. Okay, in other words, I don't think we're being drawn here, but we need to go there. So one of my concerns with cybersecurity professionals, we are information managers, right? There's a great quote actually by Tom Clancy, you know, the military and science fiction author, Tom Clancy, right? He says, I might butcher it. He says, that's right. He said, if you want to control people, you control information, and in despotic forms of government, the control of information gives you a higher control of people, something like that. And we in cybersecurity, if you think about it, just as Charles just mentioned, with cloud computing, it's still actually a computer on the back end. With information, it's information, whether it's malware coming in or whether it's misinformation. And, you know, I'm touching upon a subject that most people find to be difficult to talk about. And I don't know why. We should talk about it, because if misinformation is causing the employees of your organization harm, let's say, how are you going to manage that? Who's going to manage that? So I'll give you an example. There's a great company, it's a true story, a great company called Basecamp. Bootcamp or Basecamp? Basecamp. And Basecamp's CEO sent out a memo basically saying something like this. Hey, folks, you know, our organization isn't a platform, is not a platform for political speech, right? What we need to do is just kind of focus on our work, because things are getting a little bit out of hand with all of the yelling and rhetoric, and especially in the United States, which is where I live, right? When it comes to, you know, politics and things like that, and movements and ideologies. 60% of his employees walked out, quit. They're like, well, if we can't voice our opinion about blah, 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 we're out of here. It's like, whoa, really? That's really surprising. You can imagine how surprised this poor guy was, right? And all he said was, hey guys, a little bit too much kind of yapping, you know, let's get back to work. 60% of people. So why do they walk out? Well, because clearly 60% of people are under the misapprehension that they were working there to have a voice in, you know, whatever thing that they want to be kind of, you know, let's say just yelling about, right? Well, how did we get to that place? That is an information problem. And I think the best people to engage in that, the scientists, the engineers that think in ones and zeros and have less emotion invested in the sort of crazy rhetoric we see on the news all the time, are the CISOs, the kind of department of the CISO. And here's how I think. So Rupinder, here's my long-winded answer to it. Here's where I think the industry is going. I think the CISO needs to move out from underneath the CIO. Number one, you're policing your boss. That doesn't work. Look what happened with Volkswagen of Latin America. It was the CIO, if you remember that debacle where they deceived the diesel emissions protocol. That was it. This was in 2016, I believe. Mm-hmm. They deceived the diesel emissions protocol to say it was clean. I mean, this is horrendous, by the way, with all of the, you know, let's keep our environment clean nowadays, right? So that's a pretty egregious act. And it's cost them $15 billion so far, so good. But anyway, the CIO actually sourced a piece of software to make that deception happen. So it wasn't malware. So the CISO would never have seen it anyway. Plus the CISO would be policing his boss or her boss. So that's weird, right? So move the CISO from out underneath the CIO. It's time for the CISO's department to kind of mature. Report to the CEO with a dotted line to the general counsel. Why? Because general counsel deal in risk. A CISO isn't primarily a technologist. A CISO is a risk mitigator. That's the maturity of where I think we're evolving in the cybersecurity industry. And then I think what will happen is you'll start to see the cybersecurity folks get involved in making sure information in general is clean. That's where I think we're going. And then, of course, I think, you know, with ransomware and with individuals needing protection, because society has become highly complicated for the average human being. Look, I'll touch on an interesting subject here, Charles, and tell me what you think about this, and then we'll close. We'll do a couple of hellos because we've got some folks just dialing in. We've only got about 5 minutes left in the show, but hello, Kenneth. And then we're working hard in India, aren't we? My goodness, we've got quite a few people who are working late at night in India. Hello, Kavan. So yeah, tell me what you think about this, Kevin. So it is illegal for the US military to recruit a person if they have an IQ of, I think it's 82 or 83 or less. The reason why is because the US military in this case, the US military has discovered that there is nothing they can do to train that person that would be helpful, right? So that's tough, right? So yeah, you don't want to put a gun in that person's hand and send them to war. That's not fair, right? It's unkind, it's unethical. But with an IQ of 82, 83, there really is, you can't even kind of be garbage collector, right? It's a tough one, it's difficult. So you think, oh, okay, well, maybe that's just a total minority. It's actually 10% of the US population of 337 million people. So 37 million people, which is pretty much the size of Canada, my friend, right, have a difficult time with technology. And then there's all the people in between, me included, by the way, because I tell you, I find it very complicated. And when I've got proper problems, not when I'm fixing my mum's computer over the phone, I phone my colleagues and I say, help me. And then they help me because, like your colleagues, I've become friends with my colleagues, right? So I think cybersecurity moves to there's some kind of role to take care of an important subset of people. That's where I think we might be going.
And I don't think even just those people who aren't able to. I think there's a group of people who just don't want to.
Yeah.
They don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I mean, look, if you're a lawyer or a doctor, you're pulling 16-hour days in the ER. You haven't got time to be learning about cybersecurity. So you're absolutely right. So people, with IQs of 140 are also affected by this. So I think, Rupinder, that's where we're going. I love the question. Thank you so much. We're going to end on that question. And, our industry, nevertheless, it will be steaming forward no matter how it occurs, because we are more and more digitized. We're going to Mars soon, so we're going to have to protect all of that. So, hey, it's a great industry to be in. Kevin, this was really cool for me, man. We started off talking about the Olympics. We're both Canadians, so I'm happy to have a Canadian on the call. This was really brilliant. And look, for those people that might want to follow up with questions or anything else, you can keep commenting on LinkedIn. You can find I'm easy to find, Edwin Eddie Doyle Manhattan. Type that into LinkedIn search bar. I'm the only one that comes up. Kevin Charles Auto Attack for Checkpoint. He'll come up on LinkedIn. You can DM us through LinkedIn if you have any questions. Yeah, for those of you who are customers, you should know how to get a hold of us anyway. Kevin, man, thanks. Really appreciative, mate. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Eddie.
And last little comment from Rupinder. Your knowledge level is great, Eddie. Thanks for your time, Charles. That's very sweet of you to say so, man. So let's end on that note. Kevin, wonderful. We are going off air right now.